Okay, and welcome to this Technovation Webinar 3. This is the first of 3 webinars about App Inventor. Today's objectives, we will talk about how to access App Inventor, how to log in. Then we will familiarize ourselves with the interface and the various components that are available to us with App Inventor. The next thing we'll do is build a couple apps. We'll build a Hello World app just to kind of get used to the features of App Inventor and then also how to connect the device. And then we'll build a simple slideshow application. So App Inventor is pretty easy to use program. It's a platform developed by MIT and used what the goal of it is basically that you will be able to build an Android application without having to know how to write Java. So that's one of the reasons why we recommend it for use for Technovation, because it's very easy to get up and running. Students don't have to have any prior programming experience. And it's a great way to teach programming concepts. Because instead of writing actual code, it's based on a block-based system. So if you're familiar with things like Scratch, it's basically the same thing. Instead of typing out code, students drag blocks around. So it's very visual and easy way of programming. So to get started, if you go to appinventor.mit.edu, this is the website that has all the information about App Inventor. So here you have various resources about how to use App Inventor. There's tutorials, documentation, news, events about what the platform is. So if you have any questions or you get stuck on anything, something's not working, this is a great resource to go to. Also, you could just go to YouTube and search for App Inventor, and there's plenty of tutorials out there. So the first thing you'll need is a Gmail account, and you'll have to be logged into your Gmail account. If you don't have a Gmail account, you'll have to create one, because that's how you actually log into App Inventor. So once you're logged into your Gmail account, if you go to this button, Create Apps, this will take you to the actual App Inventor platform. The first time you do this, it'll ask you to authenticate with Gmail. Just hit OK. So we go to our projects. Here are my projects. This just will have a list of your projects. So to begin with, we're going to build a Hello World app. This is a traditional introduction to anything in programming. So to start a new project, we'll click the Start New Project button, and we'll pick our project name. Now, ideally you would go Hello World like this. However, App Inventor does not like spaces, so what we'll do is we'll put an underscore here. I'll just call this project Hello World. Hit OK. You see it shows up here in our projects list, and then it will launch this screen. So the first thing you see here is basically our user interface builder. App Inventor's kind of split up into two sections. One, the designer section, and then the second section is the blocks section. So if you click on blocks, it'll switch over, and blocks is where you will do all of your programming. So the first thing you want to take a look at is designer, because this is actually what the user interface will look like to your app users. And on the left-hand column, you have this palette, which has all the user interface components. So buttons, checkboxes, labels, text boxes, web viewer, layout, and we're going to show you how to use the most common of these elements. There's a lot here. We're not going to go into everything. However, I would encourage you to have your students play around with this and just explore and just see what they could do, because it's again, most of this is just a kind of a drag and drop interface. So the most common elements that you'll use in App Inventor are likely button, label, text box. Those are probably the three most common. In further tutorials, we'll talk about list view and some others, but for this application, we'll start out with text box, button, and label. So to begin with, let's drag out a label. We'll just drag that out onto the screen. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't allow you to edit this directly here. So what you have to do is go to the Properties tab. So if you look here on the right-hand side, the Properties allows you to change a number of well, properties on this element. So you could change the font size. We can increase that to 16. Let's see, that didn't too much. So let's bump it up quite a bit. So let's do 30, and you'll see that increases the font size. You could make the font bold. You could change the color of the font. A number of various attributes. So what we want is to change the text. So say hello world. The text updates there. So that's pretty basic. Now let's the next step is to actually essentially test this out on a device. And there's several different ways of connecting this application to test on a device. And you go into App Inventor's documentation, resources, documentation, and then this connect phone, tablet, or emulator. Click on that link, and it will give you the options for connecting to a device. Now, it says obviously the number one option here is recommended. The reason is that this is the easiest. The other two options have a couple different hurdles involved with them, but you want to start here. So for this to work, you need an actual Android device. So if you are an iOS user, unfortunately, App Inventor does not yet work with iOS, so you will have to use an emulator. However, what I've noticed is that most students in Ukraine have Android devices, so your team, you should be able to get away with using, if you don't have an Android device, one of your students will. So I recommend just trying to go this route. If not, then you could use the emulator instructions. So for this, I'll go back to our Hello World application here, and I'm going to pull up my Samsung phone, and I'm gonna actually cast it here on the screen. So here you could see this is actually a mirror of an actual device that I'm holding in front of me. So in order to get the device running on your phone, first thing you'll need to do is go to the Google Play Store, and you will download this, let's see if I can, MIT AI2 Companion. So if you go to the Google Play Store, search for MIT AI2 Companion, download that application. That's what actually makes the connection between what you're doing in the browser here and your phone. So what I will do is launch MIT AI2 Companion on my device, and then you're going to go to Connect, and you're going to pick AI Companion. And what will happen is you will see a QR code. And on your device, if you launch the AI companion, you're going to click connect with, or actually scan QR code. Or you could type in this code as well. But I'm going to scan the QR code. This should then show up on my device. And actually all that does is QR code just types in that code and then pulls it up. So here you could see, actually what I'm going to do is this side by side here. So it's, let's see. So hello world, there we go. Now, if I want to change that text, again, I click on this label, say hello world or hello Jason, and you'll notice that this actually updates on the device. And so that's the benefit of connecting via the QR code, is that these two screens, as you're working on it, they're in sync. One thing to note is that in order for this to work, both your computer and your device have to be on the same Wi-Fi network. So that's key. If they're not, then this doesn't work, and you'll have to use some other methods. One of which is you could also do a build and say provide QR code for .apk. And what this will do is this will go out onto App Inventor's servers, build the application, and then it'll provide a QR code. So I'll demo that too. So if for whatever reason the the Connect AI companion here does not work, you could go to build and then provide QR code this way. And so I'll show you how that works. It's basically the same. However, things will not be in sync. So let me launch this. So I'm going to scan the QR code here. So it went actually out to App Inventor's servers and tried to download this. Now, what you will get is this warning: install blocked for security reasons. So what you'll need to do is actually override this. So if I go to settings, lock, and you go to this unknown sources under security, allow installation of apps from sources other than the Play Store. You turn that on and allow this installation only, click OK, then you can install this. This will actually download the app and install it directly on the device. So the app was installed, open, and here we go. We see the same thing. Now, this is great. This works, and this will work in a pinch if you can't get the other method working. However, the issue here now is that this application is actually installed on the device, so it is not it's not mirroring what you see here. So for example, if I change this back to hello world, it'll update here. However, it will not update here because they're not communicating with each other. So essentially what you would have to do is go to build the APK file again, scan the QR code, download the app, and so the workflow for that is not ideal. It's not a fast iteration. So this is just a backup if the other method doesn't work. So again, try to use the AI companion app and with connected on the same Wi-Fi network. That's going to be your best bet. Okay, so if you were able to get the Hello World running on your device, then congratulations, that's your first Android application. Now, of course, that is not very exciting by any means, so let's see what other things we could do with this. Let's try maybe taking this, what we've done here, this Hello World, and allowing the user to maybe type in some text and say hello and perhaps a name, right? So the user could then choose which name they want to put in there, decide who they want to say hello to. So in order to do that, what we could do is, well, first we'll need a text box. So the text box is the basic way in which users are able to type in text, essentially. So drag out a text box on the screen there. Now let's actually pull up this application so we'll actually be able to see what we're doing. It. So again, I'm going to scan this QR code. Pull this application up on the device. So you'll see here that now we have this text box where we could type stuff in. Okay. So let's go. And well, first, since whoever we're saying hello to will be in this text box, we can first get rid of hello world. So let's delete that and just say hello. Okay. Now, the next thing is, so the user will type in something into this text box, and we'll need a way to trigger the device to say hello, whoever. So the next thing we'll need is a button. So we'll say, drag this button out here, and we'll say, let's give this button some text. So we'll say hello. Okay. So say hello. So hello, user will enter, and then click say hello. Now, it'd be cool if you could actually have the device maybe say that out loud. So we could actually do that. We go to, I believe it's in media, yes. So text to speech. Here we have, in this media, you have camcorder, which does some video capabilities, camera, image picker, player, sound, a number of different things. So we're going to use this text to speech. So what will happen is the device will take whatever you enter here, you click say hello, and then it will say that. So let's drag this text to speech out here. And you'll notice that when I dragged it out to there, it didn't show anything. It doesn't pull up in this screen because this is actually, it's what's called a non-visible component. So there's several non-visible components that you could drag out here, like databases, a number of these. So this is just kind of a place that will hold that text, and then we'll activate the audio capabilities on the phone. So I think that's everything we need here in order for this to work. But now we have to actually program that logic. So that's where these blocks come in. So go in the upper right-hand corner and click on blocks. You'll see in this left-hand pane that there's all the components here that we dragged out. So we have the label, we have the text box one, button, text to speech. These are now we could use these to program what we want to do with these, right? So the first thing we'll do is we'll take text box one, and we want to get that text. So we'll say text box one text. So this is what we'll get, the text of whatever we pull in there. The next thing we want to do is take the text to speech. Say call text to speech speak message. And so we want this text to speech to speak hello and then whatever is in the text here. So we need to put the text hello here. So if you go up here in these built-in components, text, I'm just going to use this, say hello. And now we need a way to, well, we need a way to connect these two. So there's a method in here called join. So we're going to join hello, whatever text we have. And you'll see that basically the programming in this is just you're snapping together blocks like puzzle pieces. And this is helpful because you'll see that, well, often if the puzzle pieces, if there's no way of connecting them like here, then that tells you that you'll probably need some other block in order to make that work. And things that don't connect or shouldn't connect, the program won't allow you to. So if it snaps into place, then you know you're on the right track. So then this will join, right? Connect hello and then whatever we put in the text box. And then that's going to essentially be our message, okay? So now we need a way to trigger this. So what we'll do is we'll take that button and then we'll use this event handler. When button one is clicked, do this. Let's drag this out here. So, and we will just take this whole block and we'll throw it in there. So now, when button one is clicked, we're saying call this speak method and create this message, hello, and then whatever we have in the text box. So let's try that. Let's see if that works. So let's do this up. I'm going to do hello, John. I'm going to click say hello. See if the volume here.
Hello, John.
Okay, so you'll see that was pretty simple, but this is just a good example of the capabilities that App Inventor has, the text-to-speech. Next, we'll use the speech recognizer. That's a pretty cool feature. So I would recommend doing some simple apps like this with your students just to get them kind of up and running and understand how some of this works. So with that, let's try something different. Let's try the speech recognizer. Now, you'll notice that this is screen 1, right? So it's going to be very common for you to have multiple screens. So I'm going to show you how to add a screen and how to navigate between the two, or several. So let's go up here and you see this add screen. Okay? So we're going to add screen and we're going to call it screen name 2. Now, one thing to note, something that's very important, and this is something that kind of could mess you up if you don't realize this, is that screen 1 will be the screen that will load first. Right? That seems logical. However, what happens is sometimes people use screen 1 and they do something, some other screen that is not the loading screen, and then they'll try to create a loading screen, and unfortunately there's no way to set a different screen other than what's labeled screen 1 as the loading screen. So make sure whatever screen you want to show up first on your application is what's labeled screen 1, because there's no way to change that later. Well, at least not in this interface. So we're going to call this next screen screen 2. That's fine, and we're going to click OK, and that should create screen 2. So you'll see screen 2 is pulled up here. Now what we want to do here is, again, we'll go to this media and we'll do speech recognizer. I'm going to pull this out, and then how about we need some way to take what we speak into the device and print it out on screen. So for that, we're going to use a label. And to begin with, we won't have anything in the label. We'll just have a blank label up there. And then what we'll want to do is have whatever we say print out to the screen. So we'll probably also need a button in order to, again, trigger this. So say the button, and then we'll call this record. Now if we go into blocks, this button, label, and speech recognizer. So let's take a look at what speech recognizer gives us. So when speech recognizer, after getting text, take the result, do. Okay. So this basically is saying that when the speech recognizer is done getting the text that you basically speak into the device, it will do something after getting that text. So that sounds like something we'll need, right? So we'll drag that out. The next thing is, let's see, speech recognizer. We'll get the result. So speech recognizer result. We'll also probably need that. Okay. The next thing is we'll take the label and we're going to set label text to whatever's in the speech recognizer. That should then print out whatever's in the text. Right, and then when speech recognizer after getting text do, we'll also probably need this call. Okay, so let's take this button 1. When button 1 clicked, call the speech recognizer. There we go. So what this is saying is, it says when we click button 1, call the speech recognizer. Speech recognizer will then allow you to speak into the phone. Then once it's done, right, after it's done getting the text, it will then print this out into label 1. So back to designer, let's go to label 1. Let's increase the font size here so that we'll be able to see it. Right. So let's see what happens. pull up Visor, see what's going on. Now if I click record, hello world. You'll see it printed out hello world. Okay, that's pretty cool. So let's try that again. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. See if that works. And it actually worked. So again, this is a pretty cool little feature that you could do with your students that once they start to see this actually in action, they get really excited because they've, it's pretty simple for them to get the phone to do something. So again, just get them to explore these various features and play around with it, drag stuff out onto the screen, see what it does. And yeah, they'll be up and running in no time. So the next thing we'll do is we are going to actually take a look at one of the code challenges here. So code challenge 1 is actually to make a slideshow. And how they do it, how they suggest to do it in Technovation, it works, and it's actually a good exercise to show how to navigate between screens. However, what is not very clear, and you only find this out after it's too late, is that App Inventor, the more screens you add, the app starts to slow down quite a bit. And of course, it depends on what you're doing on those screens. However, once you start to get into 15 to 20 screens, things could start to slow down to where the app becomes unusable. So this method of doing a slideshow where each screen has an image and you're navigating between them, this is not a very good way to build this. So I'm going to show you a kind of a better way to do it where you're just using one screen. But it's just note that you want to try to keep the number of screens that you do add to App Inventor to a minimum. So, and in the next few tutorials, we'll discuss how to kind of limit the number of screens and actually reuse screens for different purposes. So with that, let's try to create this slideshow. Let's start out by creating a new project. So we'll go back into my projects and create a new project. Project name, we'll call this slide underscore go. Click OK. So go into slideshow. We'll have a new project here. And let's see, what do we need for a slideshow? Well, we need an image, right? Or several images. We'll need a place to show the image. Then we'll also need two buttons. One button that will advance it to go to the next image, and a button to go backward to go to the previous image. So let's start out by creating this image, or I should say creating a placeholder for these images. And what we'll do is we'll take an image, this image component here, and put that there. And then what we'll do is we will change the properties here. So height, let's say height automatic, width, let's say fill parent. See how that works. So fill parent, basically we'll just fill it to the element that it's in. So fill it to the full width of the screen. Let's see. Now let's actually upload our files next. So, or we'll upload one file and actually put it into the image. So choose file. We'll use this image. Now it's conventional to use cats in demos, however I like dogs, so using dogs here. So that image is uploaded. So now it's kind of strange how App Inventor does this. However, there's this box here, obviously, that's media, and that stores all your images for your application. So you just upload a file, and this will then grow or have a list of media that you have in the project. But now to assign this image here, that media, you have to then click on picture, and then you could choose which one you want, or you could actually upload directly from there too. But if you upload first, then you could set it to set any picture. So click OK, and then go. Have image here, and let's see if pull this up on device. Going to scan. So we should see, oh, we have our application, and it's displaying this image now. Okay, so that's image one. So now we need a way to basically navigate between various images. So what we'll do is, down here we will put two buttons, and we want them to display to the right and left of each other. So what we'll do there is we'll take this layout. There's these layout components, and basically this is how you could arrange different components. So what we want is this horizontal arrangement, essentially. So see this, there's kind of these icons that show how the arrangements work. So I want a horizontal arrangement. I'm going to just throw that underneath this image here. And horizontal arrangement, what to do is set width again to fill parent. That increased it to span the width of the parent. Now within the horizontal arrangement, I want to add the two buttons. So button, first button here, and then second button here. And let's see, so let's relabel this. So button one, we will say is, say previous for short. And then button two, say next. Okay, previous and next. Perfect. These are the buttons that we'll use to control the navigation between the images. Okay, now here's another very important tip. So we have button one and button two here. That really, when you start to get many buttons on the screen, button one, button two, button three, that's not going to be very helpful to you. That's not a very semantic way of labeling your buttons, because you don't know really what these do. So it's important to label your buttons and your labels and other components to something more meaningful. So button one, as you can see, is previous. So I'm going to click on button one here, and I'm going to rename it. And so old name's button one. I'm going to say, call this previous. Okay. I'm going to go to button two, and it's next. Now, this isn't important for here in the designer, but what this is important for is the blocks. Now you see we have previous and next. Now we know what these buttons, what their purpose is. Otherwise, if you have button one, button two, button three, you start to lose kind of context of why you put those there. So always give your buttons and your labels meaningful names that will make programming this much easier. So let's see. Let's go back to designer. I think we're good here. I think that's all we need for this. So the next part is to actually program these. Well, actually, no. Let's before we do that, let's upload the other files we want. So let's upload to. Unfortunately, there's no way to upload multiple files at the same time I'm aware of. So we'll do this one at a time. So we only have four. Okay. Let's go to blocks. See here, we also have the media it's just displaying here as well. So what we want to do is we need a way of kind of keeping track of which image is displaying at any given time. So we'll use the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 as kind of a what we'll say is the current image. So what we'll need for that is a variable. And in the next webinar, we're going to talk more about programming fundamentals, where we'll talk about variables and control flow and all of that. But for now, just take my word for it. We're going to need a variable, and we're going to call this current underscore image. And let's initialize that variable to we'll use 1. It's going to say, well, actually we're going to use a math for this, so we're going to use numbers instead of x. So we're going to initialize it to 1. Okay. The next thing we'll need is, for when this screen loads, we want to assign this image to the for 1.jpg. So let's go to click on screen, and you'll notice here there's event handlers for screen as well. So we'll say when screen 1 initialized. That means when screen 1 loads or displays, or however you want to think of it, do something. So pull this out here and do this. So we'll say image 1 picture, set image 1 picture 2. We're going to take the current image and to go to variables, say get current image. Let's see. We could put that here. However, that's not going to work because this is just a number. What we need is this number plus dot JPEG. So if you'll recall from the Hello World app, one way we did that was we used this join method. So let's use that same concept here. I'll say join this number. Set that. And then text here. Say join get global current image and dot g. So what this is doing now is when this screen loads, it's saying set this image picture to 1.jpg. So that's good. now we need a way of navigating between the several images. So we're going to use the previous and next buttons for that. So let's do when previous click. We'll probably need to do something when previous is clicked. And we'll probably have to do something when next is clicked. So these are the event handlers essentially of when those buttons are clicked. So let's think for a second. What do we need to do in order to navigate? Well, we would probably, when we hit next, we probably need to increase this by 1. Right, so let's program the next button first. So when next is clicked, I want to set the variable, set current image to do some math here, addition, to whatever it is need to get current, whatever the current value is. Okay. So what this is saying is set the current image variable to whatever it is currently plus 1. So if it's 1, it'll go to 2. If it's 2, it'll go to 3. So on and so forth. So that in there. So we'll set that variable. And then we're going to have to take that variable again and then assign the image. So let's actually have to do this essentially. So let's duplicate this and that as well. So first we set the variable, we increment it by 1, and then we take whatever that variable is, join it with .jpg, set that picture, this image here, to that string. So what this should do is when I click next, it should then go to 2.jpg. Then if I click next again, it should go to 3.jpg. So let's see if this actually works now. Back to design. No, probably don't. So actually something interesting happened here. I'm actually glad this happened because often you might get things where what's going on your device versus what's happening in App Inventor goes out of sync. So how do you fix that? Well, you could do a reset connection. Hopefully that will update what is going on. This doesn't seem to be working. So what I will do instead is, well, let's try a hard reset. This will attempt to reset me. Well, if that happens, what you could also do is just, I'm going to quit App Companion. I'm going to restart it and rescan the QR code. So that's normal. Don't worry about it. So scan QR code again. Okay, you'll see. Okay, so now we're back in sync here. So what should happen, hopefully, if I press next, it will go to the next image. So Click next, and yeah, there we go. There it works. Next. It's 3. If I hit next, we go to 4. If I hit next, ooh. Okay, so we have a problem here. This point, I hit next, and it's incremented to 5, and we only have 4 images. So if I just keep hitting next, it's just going to keep going, and well, there's some other images in there that are labeled that. But if I keep hitting next, it's just going to go keep incrementing. So we need a way to, if we have 4 images, we don't want to go to 5. We want to go instead back to 1. So this is where we will use some control flow. And here we have logic. So we have, let's see, actually not logic, control flow. So we want to say if we're on 4, we want to go back to 1, right? Because we don't want to go to 5. So we're going to say if logic so if the current global image will get image equals plus 4. We'll pull this out of here. We'll say duplicate this. So if it equals 4, then set current global image to one. Now, if it doesn't equal 4, actually, let's do this. If it doesn't, I pulled the wrong one here. If no, actually, that should work. So let's try it. Let's see what happens. So if global current image equals 4, then set global image to 1. Yeah, that should work. Else, and if we we need an else. So let's drag an else in here. See, that'll create a branch. So if this equals 4 set to 1, else set global current image to whatever it is plus 1. Okay. Let's get rid of it. And you'll notice that I'm deleting some blocks here. It's important that if you have some extra blocks laying around that you aren't using, probably a good idea to delete them, because sometimes that will cause some errors. Just keep the workspace tidy, that will help. So let's see if this should work. Now set the current global image here, and then we'll want to update that. Okay. Of course, I got a connection error, so I'm going to rescan this. AI companion. Let's rescan this. test if this works. So what this should do, this should go to the next. Yep, it goes to the second, goes to the third, goes to the fourth. Now, hopefully this goes to the first one again. Yes. So we could circle through this. Next. So this is working perfectly now. Except now we have to do the previous button. So we have the previous button working. But the previous is basically just the opposite of the next. So what we could do is we could basically copy this, we'll duplicate this, and we'll put this in previous. But here, instead of saying if current image equals, we'll say 1, we'll go to 4. Otherwise, we want to decrease. So instead of +1, we'll do -1. Do the math here. So this, do -1. Okay. So get current global image minus. And then duplicate this. There we go. This should work. Let's test it out. Before we do that, it's always good to kind of read the code and check the logic in your head, make sure this works. So with the previous, if current image equals 1, we want to go to 4. All right. Else, set it to whatever it currently is -1, and then we'll set that image. So yeah, so basically this is just the reverse, obviously, of what the next is. So this should work. Let's try this. Scan. So we have first style, we'll go to next. Try previous. Previous, that works. Was the first one, should go to the fourth one. There we go. Previous, previous, next. Okay, all right. So it looks like our Slideshow app is working. Again, we will go over in the next webinar a bit more about programming fundamentals. So if you're not used to seeing this if else, then we'll talk more about that. But this is a good kind of head start into playing around with the blocks and understanding some of those things. Also, I wanted to demonstrate how to kind of use one screen versus multiple, instead of the code challenge that Technovation shows, because again, it's important to limit the number of screens that you have and do a lot more with reusing components like images and screens. So with that concludes this webinar. The next webinar, we will discuss programming fundamentals, and we'll play around more with blocks. Thank you.